Now the change has been more like, how would I fit my baby into my business? But it's the reverse now. It's like, how do I fit my business into my family life? Which is so interesting because even I see myself rejecting things that other people are praying for because I want to be home for a weekend, which 5 years ago, I would have been like, that is insane. Like, that is nuts behavior.
Welcome to the Favorite Self podcast. I like to think of it not as your future self or your best self, but your favorite self. My favorite self that just makes me feel the truest version of me. What lights your favorite self on fire? I'm Carly Ottaway, founder, author, storyteller, and a woman who learned that building a successful life means nothing if it doesn't feel like yours. This podcast is for women who are building businesses, raising families, leading movements, and asking themselves, is this it? Or is there more available to me? This is your invitation to come back to yourself. Let's dig in.
Today is such a special one for me because I'm sitting down with someone who is not only a huge expander, but also a true friend and biz bestie of mine behind the scenes. I am joined by Kristina Bartold, co-founder of the Social Snippet and co-founder of High Vibe Women. Kristina is really known for helping entrepreneurs grow powerful brands and communities through podcasting and social media. But what I love most about her, in addition to her amazing sense of humor, is the way that she leads, the way that she shows up with vision, honesty, and such a deep and generous commitment to impact. In this conversation, we go far beyond business strategy. We're talking about identity shifts, motherhood, boundaries, people pleasing, and what it really looks like to redefine success in a season when your life and your priorities are evolving in real time. Kristina shares so openly about her journey from building a fast scaling 7-figure business to navigating the transition into motherhood and how that's reshaped everything from how she works to how she leads to how she really sees herself. And if you are someone who has ever felt the tension between ambition and presence, from growth and grounding, or who you used to be and who you are becoming, this episode is really going to land for you. I can't wait for you to hear it.
Hello and welcome back to the Favorite Self podcast. I am so excited today to have the podcasting queen here and one of my absolute favorite people in the whole world who I've just been so lucky to call a friend and a biz bestie. And I can't wait to dive in here with Kristina Bartold.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here. And as you were doing your intro, I was clapping because this has been a long time coming.
Yes.
And I'm so excited that your podcast is here and out in the world. You're going to bless so many people. So this is going to be amazing. So can't wait to hear it and listen to it and now be a part of it.
Well, the tables have turned and I feel like you're such an expander for me in this world. So you had to be on. You had to be one of my first guests. So I'm super pumped for this conversation. And I feel like this first question probably won't catch you by surprise, but I know that it is one that gets you thinking. And I'm just curious if we could start with, what does your favorite self feel like in this season of life, business, motherhood?
Oh, Carly. You know what's funny is I actually thought of this on the way, right? Because I was like, okay, favorite self. She's definitely going to ask me. And Carly, for those of you who don't know me, I always say I'm woo-woo adjacent. So I have the tarot cards are on the desk, but I haven't picked them up kind of thing. And it's just been such an interesting journey of, especially in this last year, I've gone through a massive transition in my life, becoming a mom. And, my favorite self has evolved in such an amazing way that I wasn't really even expecting. And I'm sure lots of entrepreneur moms feel that, where I originally was my favorite self is speaking self, right? I go to events, I meet all these amazing people. I'm building business. I'm bringing ideas to life. I'm networking. That would feel like my favorite self. And now I'm feeling this pull of quiet, where my favorite self is feeling home, with my family, my son, my husband, my doggo, Patrick, and also feeling taking that time to grow business and doing those things is still so important, but also feeling that spaciousness and that balance of those two things, right? So I feel in this season, my favorite self is, a quick trip where I'm on the first flight out or last flight out, first flight back. And I've done impactful stuff in that, 2 or 3 days that I'm gone. And then the other days are just soaked in family snuggles, I would say.
Yeah, the best.
Yeah, the best.
And would you say that that surprises you? I'm curious if you kind of even just look back a year ago or maybe a couple years ago about just like what feels really good and true for you right now and how you show up in kind of your day-to-day versus then. And yeah, how would she feel about this transition and shift that you've made?
I feel like so many people who probably resonate with this, and I don't know, Carly, maybe you could speak to this too, is this idea of like old me could not even imagine current me. Like, I think about, there's that trend where people post like pictures of of themselves as kids, and it's like, oh, like me, I run a team, like me, I do this, like crazy. And that's really how I feel, like where it's like, oh, like no way that I get to do all of these cool things that make massive impact for people, like, whether that be in our agency, the Social Snippet, or High Vibe Women, the events we get to run, like in the community we lead, like there's just so much opportunity for impact. And so it does feel like, in a way, like, of course, like Maria and I were talking today about how we met, and, we used to run events in university and stuff, and like all that's like kind of come to fruition like later, now 10 years later. But it, like, in a way, it feels like, of course, but in other ways, it just feels so mind-bending, especially from the motherhood perspective of like, oh my goodness, I have this little human at home and I also balance working, and like it's just such a different experience than so many of my friends who are moms who are at home for the year, and like I'm like working and then I'm like snuggling my baby and then I'm working, like, so it's always just such a balance. But I know you speak to that as well.
Yeah, and I have loved watching you on that journey and, from your pregnancy, feeling just so excited to see your evolution and growth and the identity shift that would come with motherhood, because as we know, no two stories of motherhood, of entrepreneurship are the same.
Yeah.
It's so different. And you really have to just find the way that works best for you. And I know that feeling in pregnancy where you're just like, really, there's that anxious feeling of like, how am I going to do both? How is this baby going to fit into my world that is so business focused? And probably a lot of identity wrapped up in business.
Totally. And like worthiness, like I think
Yes.
is a big piece too, where it's like, I actually, like, going into becoming an entrepreneur, something I really worked on was like, I felt a lot of worthiness associated with work. Like, I was first promoted. I was first in, last out. I was always the like boss's favorite. Like that was always like my story, It's not self-proclaimed, I swear. I'm not like, hey guys. But I'll take a poll of my past employers. But I really I worked hard and a lot. And it really made my identity about that's how people know me. It's like I'm a hard worker. I'm great at what I do. And then when I totally made the shift, it's like when you're an entrepreneur, no one cares when you start work or finish work. Actually, the flex is the opposite. The flex is like less work is best and more money is best. So I really had a lot of unlearning to do with that. And I would say now the change has been more like, how would I fit my baby into my business? But it's the reverse now. It's like, how do I fit my business into my family life? Which is so interesting because even I see myself rejecting things that other people are praying for because I want to be home for a weekend, which 5 years ago, I'd have been like, that is insane. Like that is like nuts behavior. But I had a great speaking opportunity come up recently. And then I was like, oh, it's 2 back-to-back trips. It's a no for me. And my friend was like, oh, it's kind of crazy. That's a great opportunity. And I'm like, it's a great opportunity, but like my family's my priority right now, right? And growing my family. So it's such a whirlwind. And I think especially as women, we just have such a different experience with it. Also from like a physical perspective, I even being pregnant, that was the first time, and I've said this before on podcasts, like that was the first time I had ever felt comfortable saying no to things. Because I actually had a physical reason. Like I had a physical hey, I'm down bad. Like don't come talk to me. Like I'm in bed, and I've been the person who's had gallbladder surgery and on morphine and doing discovery calls. Like I'm that person. Like I've never had that kind of experience, and it actually taught me a lot about really that that's time and spaciousness, but also what's important. So yeah, and long-winded, but I would say I think I look back on the season and it's like, wow, more than I could have ever imagined. And also I think I look forward and I think the same.
Yeah. I love that so much and have so many questions coming through my head. But you are someone who I've always looked up to as being such a hard worker, but also such a powerful manifester. And especially considering you're not woo. And to me, my manifestation process is so spiritual. But you've always been someone that I've looked up to in how quickly you've been able to manifest. I think how really you've held the identity of this 7-figure entrepreneur. And I say that not even by defining by the metric of the revenue metric, but just like what that identity represents in terms of the business growth that you have, achieved to get to that point. And so I'm curious for you what that process was, and we'll get into motherhood a little bit more with that too, but just even from the growth of the business, did you always have the vision for, getting your businesses to where they are today when you started out? Do you feel like you always had confidence in your ability and capacity to do that? Or was there an identity shift that you had to navigate along the way? Because you did scale quite quickly with your agency. So I'd love to hear that perspective.
Yeah, it's interesting because I would say confidence for me is like it's such an interesting thing because I have unwavering self-confidence, which sometimes gets me into trouble, right? Because I'm like, oh, I can do that, and then I can't do it, and I'm like, oh, oops. But it's just, I think, I don't know if it's growing up being an only child where, I come from an immigrant family. I'm a first-generation Canadian, so it's like my parents both told the story of like stability and like really like they're like get a job, die there, like hold on tight, whatever. But also like I could do anything, like anything was possible. You could see potential anywhere, right? Like my dad escaped communism, right? Like there's a story there that's so weaved into like anything is possible, like even in the hardest circumstances. So I think my mindset has always been like high vibe, like lack of a better term, of I've always been able to see opportunity. I'm like even something will happen and I'm the first person to say that's not a problem money can't fix. And people are always like, oh, that's so annoying. Like it's expensive. I'm like, yeah, but it's just money. Like I don't think of things like that. So what I would say is for me, any job I've ever done or any role I've ever had, I've always thought of it 10x. Like how can I make this bigger, better? Like every job I've ever had, I've always ended up with like a ton of employees under me. Like, it's always been that way because it's like I always think of things just in a bigger, like more expansive way, which has its downfalls too, right? Because I'm always kind of thinking about the future. I'm always kind of in it. Like, present moment is not always as enjoyed as it could be. So I think, as we were scaling the Social Snippet, it was early on, like me and Maria actually just did an episode on this today for my podcast. Like early on, we just had this feeling that was so visceral of like, this was going to be successful. Like we started it and we both, you're going to love it. You're going to love it. We decided on the phone we were going to do this. We were like, yeah, we're going to do this. We had talked about it. And the next day she said to me, it's so weird. Like I can visualize this like neon sign in an office, which we still don't have a neon sign. And I was like, actually, it's so weird you say that because that's also what I envisioned, but on like a wooden wall. And she was like, yeah, the wall was wooden too. Like we both had this like vision for the sign. Like not even would we have 80 clients or, would we run podcasts or the content sprints. Like it was like this sign, right? Literal sign. And so I think I haven't always looked at the Social Snippet like, oh my gosh, I want to be an 8-figure or like 9-figure or anything like that. But it's always been, I want this to be as big as it can be because I want it to have a huge ripple effect for my family and for the clients we work with. Because at the core of what we do, like I actually am like podcasting, like social media, like people don't really see the impact. I know how impactful it is. Like I know people who have thought about ending their lives and listened to a podcast that completely changed their life, like and kept them here, a business podcast. So like what kind of impact is absolutely possible with us sharing our messages and growing our community, right? So have I always been like a huge like visionary for everything? Yes. And could probably use a little less confidence. But I think there's also something like really beautiful in growing things slowly as well. And actually savoring the moment, savoring the milestones, which is something I think we missed along the way because we were so focused on speed.
Oh my gosh, so much good stuff there. And I love that perspective and just that you're sharing with me in my early days of launching a podcast and just using my voice in a different way and stretching myself in a different way and remembering. Because I think the reason I put it off, I'm a big believer that the timing just wasn't right and now it is. But I also think I didn't see the impact that I could have, because it kind of was that limiting belief around like everyone has a podcast. Like, how am I going to stand out? Who's going to listen to my podcast? But just already the conversations I've had in the very early episodes have been like, these are big, meaningful, important conversations. And it's already shifted things within me. And I'm so excited because we haven't even launched yet, to share with the community. And yeah, I totally feel like my eyes have been open to that. And I've had that experience listening to other podcasts too. So it's cool being on the other side. I'm curious, you come from such a place of abundance, I believe, and you've created so much abundance in your world. What happens on those days? Because I know there's days,
totally.
right, that you slip into scarcity or something throws you off and makes you question. We've had those conversations offline enough times, Can you share just what's your process for that? Maybe how it's shifted to, maybe kind of what it was early days versus now, and how do you get yourself out of that scarcity and back into abundance when you're feeling down bad?
Oh my God, down bad, crying at the gym, me. Okay, so anyone listening to this, if you are running a business that is making any kind of money, I'm going to tell you, you are going to feel this. This is just the reality of running a business. So I will say at the beginning, you and I both run agencies. So we jam out on agency stuff, which is, oh my gosh, a client just canceled, or they gave me this feedback, or I just had this huge win. Like, we have lots of those types of conversations. And something that's so interesting about it is like, when this first started, we had our first round of clients, I took it so personally when clients left. Like, it was like, I remember, and do you find this? I don't know, agency people listening to this, but do you ever find that clients all leave at the same time? Mm-hmm. Like, it's never one client. It's like 8 in one go, and it's never any good feedback. I'm like, hi, did all of you meet? You live across the world? So I'm just curious how you guys all decided today was the day. We had a month like that, and it's always in line with something that's going on in the economy. Like, we see, something happen in the news, and then all of a sudden people get scared, and then they tighten their money, and lots of people we know aren't in business anymore, and so it's like really just like part of, I think, doing business, but it's also just sad, And I remember I was in the Dominican Republic on a trip with my husband, and I was weeping. And I call Maria, and I'm like, Maria, we had 2 clients cancel, and what does that mean? And what does that mean about us? And Maria, one of the things I would say is the best part is that having a business partner, which and having Luke, you have someone else to be like, hey, I'm struggling. And I always reference this, but one of my clients is Aaron Spivak from Hush Blankets, and him and his business partner, they do this thing where if one of them is down bad at the gym, then the other person, it's kind of their responsibility to pick them up. So say it was Aaron would go to his business partner and be like, the code was no sales, no sales. And the other person would have to be like, what are you talking about? We have 10 things on Shopify, and this is happening right now. We're going to this market, and you need to come with us. So that has always been the relationship with Maria. We have never in 5 years of business ever both been down. The other person's always there being like, okay. And I think because we're both very similar minded, it's easy for us to bring each other up. But early on, that wasn't always the case. And so one of the things I would say is a tactical tip is find a business bestie or a business partner that you can go to and be like, this is what's happening, and here's how I'm feeling about it. I'm worried I'm never going to make a sale again. Guys, I've been in business, 5 years. There are times where I'm quite literally, I have said the words, I don't know where we would find another client. You know what people there are out there? We have 80 clients. It's that's like a room. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I don't know where another one would ever come. Would another person want to launch a podcast? I'm not sure, right? You just get in your head. So there's always more people. So I would say finding a business bestie that you can talk to, that's been huge for me. And not letting it fester. My friend always says you can have a pity party, but you can't stay there kind of thing. And that's a huge piece of it for me is I can't let it sit there, and I can't dwell in it and dwell, why would people cancel, or why is this happening, or whatever. I need to just say, okay, I'm recognizing this is happening. So what can I learn from it? What can I do to be the best possible version of myself in this? And I'm just a big believer that more is to come. And that is really hard in those moments. But we both know on the other side of a bad client or a misaligned opportunity, there's usually something even bigger on the other side. In the moment, it sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And that's something I've really noticed about my own mindset shift. And even just, a conversation we were having before recording this is just remembering when, something is ending or we're letting go, it's making space for something even better.
Yeah.
And from both sides, right? And you don't want that client or team member that doesn't feel like they're invested anymore, because that's the whole fire fast mentality, because that actually creates, you don't want those relationships to drag on. That's how it can turn into something more negative. Whereas if you can accept it and let it go and move on and create space for something better, then new doors open.
Yes, and you have no idea what kind of doors open. I even think about the podcasting side of our business, which truthfully is 50 or 60% of our business now. And that opened because I wanted to have a podcast. So I was like, okay, my team kind of has the skills to put this together. They put it together. I had an okay launch, and we learned a ton. And then I was kind of like, oh, I'm in this mastermind, and everyone keeps asking me if we do their podcast. I'm like, okay. So we took on a few podcasting clients, and then it was and then now I would say that's actually the thing I feel like most people know us for. I'm like, Social Snippet, we do social media. Podcast Snippet doesn't have the same ring. But it's really like amazing how that like was just from an open door of us being like, let's try it. Let's see if it works. There have been things we've done that haven't worked, right? Like, and also knowing those boundaries for yourself too, like knowing like what you want to be doing in your business and how you want it to grow and like really leaning into that as well. Because I think it's really easy, whether it be a misaligned team member or a misaligned client or whatever, like to get scarce, right? To hold tight, to grip. And I actually find like the harder you grip money, like there's nothing, it's not coming into your hands, right? Because you're just gripping it so tight. Woo, I know. But yeah, I just think it's just really about like maintaining perspective around it.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. And I think the partnership piece is so important too, and having that other person, you know, and really getting out of your head around entrepreneurship being so lonely. If you're feeling that way, then something is missing that you need to go and fill that void with the right person that can be that soundboard. And funny enough, as you were saying that, I feel the same with Luke and I for sure. But actually over maybe kind of a year ago when we had just a really tough year where there was a lot of growth, a lot of testing, was the first time that we had one of those conversations and we were both like on the negative.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to him, like, no, you're not allowed to be talking like this. I'm talking like this right now. You got to pick me up. And like, you know, having to be able to call each other out in that. And it's just the longer that I'm in business too, you just like have these different experiences that, you know, push you to grow into someone differently and become a different person. And so I'm curious on that, you know, we experienced kind of this year of the snake, the shedding, which I know isn't your language, but I'm from an identity perspective. Is there a pivotal time that you can remember where you really felt like you had to shed or let go of a certain part of your identity to step into this level of growth that you were stepping into in the business?
Yeah. I actually kind of feel like I'm in one. And it's been an interesting season because it's one, I like, you know, not to go into the motherhood thing too much, but like.
Oh, we can go into the motherhood thing.
Yeah. Like you get it. Like it's that was an interesting transition for me, I think, like in terms of really understanding like who I am and like what my value is and like the whole idea of like you can be replaced anywhere but here kind of thing, like with your baby. And also I actually realized I liked work more than I thought. And not from a worthiness perspective, but actually from like a fulfillment. Like, and it was funny, everyone when you are a pregnant entrepreneur for the first time feels the need to tell you about their lack of mat leave or how they set their business up. And I actually asked a few people, and was kind of like, I'm open. And so I originally was going to take 6 months off. And then shortly as we were getting closer, I was kind of like, I don't know that I want to take 6 months off. And then basically I had my baby. I was home for a few weeks and I was like, no, put me back in, coach. Like not the same amount of time at all. And I'm still not even quite back fully. It's been 9 months, but I think shedding, like there's been a lot of shedding of my own expectations of myself and what I thought success would look like in this season, right? Like it's hard. It's a challenging thing of like, and we talked about this a bit while we went to St. Anne's after High Vibe Women with our little peer-to-peer mastermind. Like I really am trying to figure out the balance of what it looks like to be a working mom. And I grew up with parents who worked a ton, like a ton. So that's actually my idea of parenthood is like, I'm an only child. I was home alone a lot. Like at an appropriate age, don't worry anybody, but like I was home or with my grandma a lot and whatever. And so I actually have the exception of growing up where like my mom was the breadwinner. Like that's not now we're in a world where that's very common, but that wasn't as common then where like women were leading in that way. And at least from my experience talking to people. And so I am really trying to figure out this balance of like what success looks like as a mom, where I'm hyper present, what does hyper presence look like? But then also where I have this booming business, actually two basically, that are really taking off. And wanting to capitalize on every possible opportunity, but also shedding expectation of like what it means to be a great mom at home or what it means to be a great businesswoman. Or like, people will ask me, I got this great opportunity to go speak at this event in Ottawa. And I was like, I just like physically cannot. Like, and even though that's a great opportunity for you, it's not a great opportunity for me. And really like managing all of that. So that's been a really interesting season. And I think the other piece of that has been the amount of boundaries I've had to set up around my time has been so hard for me, Carly, like in the sense of I'm like, and the way I grew my business so fast is I'm a yes person. I see opportunity everywhere person. I'm a like, yes, let's jump on a phone call. Let's do this. And now it's oh, I'm sorry, I can't go to that. Or people introducing me to people and me saying like, I actually am not in a season for connection calls. Like I don't actually have the time or me rebooking things into like oblivion, being like, I'm so sorry, like right now is not the time to be connecting with me. Like that's just not my norm, And so that's been a lot of my shedding. Like I think one is the motherhood piece, but two, it's really that like boundary piece, which are one and the same. But like I think as we build really relationship-centered businesses, which, you and I both do, those boundaries are like so hard to put up and also like so hard to break through as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you for sharing that so vulnerably too while you're in it, because I think it's so important. And, there's so many different seasons of business and of motherhood.
Yeah.
And I think so much of it, similar to that kind of perspective from when you were pregnant, is just being able to keep open-minded about what this is going to lead to and knowing that it's going to look different for you and being able to kind of carve your own path. And
yeah.
But especially for you, someone who has built your business so rooted in community. And I know that's a core value for both of us and a big piece of what you've always credited for your early success and fast success. And I do think there's something I remember in the early days, especially for me, I had my second like in the middle of the pandemic. And then we had our house fire and like I didn't realize it at the time how much I was in survival mode.
Yeah.
And at the time business was booming, right? Like it was COVID times, like everyone was going online. We had that was our biggest kind of growth year over year. And now looking back, I can see though where I just didn't have the capacity to invest in these business relationships because the most that I could give at that time was like going to my family. By that I mean my immediate family, my husband and my kids, because that's just the only capacity I really had.
Yeah.
And then I felt it later, over time when I was like, okay, yes, because I wasn't out there doing the things that I had done before this season of my life.
What do you mean? Sorry, this is not my podcast.
No.
I did this with Lori when I was on Lori's podcast. I'm like, can I Uno reverse this? What do you mean felt it?
In the business growth. Over time, I feel like I didn't feel it right away. But then when I looked back and I was like, what was really different? And I got really honest with myself. I was like, I felt like I was still doing the things, but I was not doing them at the same capacity. It just wasn't possible for me. And I said that to myself with a lot of grace, but also it was hard. But I look at that season and I have no regrets because I know that I gave even if it was my 40% that day and my 40% had to go to my kids that day.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious for you, Jack's 9 months?
Yeah.
9 months, which is such a sweet spot. And, things are shifting and going to continue to change. But how do you find that capacity now? Like you said, you're putting in some more boundaries and you're having to have a little bit more discernment around what is, ultimately worth that time and energy investment. And it's not against the ask or the person. It's just you have to be a little bit selfish in that. So I'm just curious kind of how that's showing up for you in terms of how your capacity is shifting around investing in your relationships. And if you have any advice to share for others.
It's such a hard one. It's the first time I've ever talked about this, but like it's such a hard one because especially as women, I think we are conditioned on the yes, right? Like we're conditioned to be the givers, to show up, to be there. Like, so telling other people no, and also, I've been on the receiving end of no's, right? We all have. And immediately when we're on the receiving end of these no's, we're like, oh, like, brutal, bitch, like, whatever. Can we swear on there? So is this your first swear? All right, here we go. Like, oh, she was a bitch. She did this. Like, this is the first time in my life I've ever been called cold. And it's been interesting because my reaction to that is visceral. Like, it's sad. Like, and both times it happened, I was deeply offended. And and my one friend who told me, about it, said it in passing. Like, this person had this experience with you. I told them that they were wrong. Like, they just kind of misread you. I've misread people, right? Like, I totally get it. And I was so upset about it. And she was like, I'm literally never telling you anything again. Like, that's the last thing you ever hear. And I was like, no, it's just so far from who I am, but so close to almost like what I'm trying to do that it like feels like I've swung too far the other way. Where I'm not trying to be cold. That's not what I mean. But what I'm trying to say is like, I've gone from having like no boundaries where people could access me all the time. I'd run events like, you know, it would be to the point where like my face hurts at the end of the event because I'm there talking to people for so long. And like, you know, it's like I like have like rashes under my eyes from stress and like all of that. I'm so far on this end that I've tried to put what feels like some building blocks because I've added this massive family commitment to my life that I'm obsessed with. And now people think I'm cold. Like, how can I win? Like, you know, as women, like, how do we win? And it actually really made me rethink. It was a great perspective shift for me because it actually really made me rethink my expectations of other women and things I thought about them. So even there's a woman I know and someone was like, oh, you know, she's a monster. And I immediately, like, my first reaction to them, and normally I'd be like, oh, interesting. Like, you know, I put that in my warning label category. But my initial reaction was like, oh, what she's had to do to get to where she's been, I bet people would call me the same, right? Like the boundaries she's had to put up, the way she's had to push back, the way she's had to do what she's had to do in a super male-dominated industry. I don't even work on a super male-dominated industry. I mostly work with women. So it's like I could only imagine how bad that is for her, right? So I think like for me, like the relationship aspect has been so key to growing my business that like I never want to lose that. But I need to understand that not all relationships are going to be fruitful all the time. And you can have like cordial relationships with people and it not necessarily be a friendship, and that's also okay. So, and that's like a really hard thing to say because I'm the type of person who would give like literally anything to anybody. But I said to Maria the other day, I got a DM from someone who's never been to one of our events and ever one time, so I don't know them. And she messaged and she was like, hey, I have some ideas for you and I'd really love to jump on a call. And I kind of was like, I don't even know if I should respond to this. Like, I did. But I just was like, I'm not in a season to have a call. She's like, well, I wasn't going to pitch you. I'm like, it doesn't even matter what it was. Like, that's just not the season I'm in. So I think, like, it is such a tough thing. And I know, Carly, you feel this too, where it's like, I know relationships work to grow your business. I know that. I've seen it in real time. We scaled our business 7 figures pretty fast. I have tons of relationships. Like, we've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in our network. We have High Vibe Women, which is our own community. But, like, right now I'm in a cultivating community season, but I'm like, I have to draw some lines somewhere. So what I would say along, you know, I'm usually the asker of the question. So now I'm just like, you know, deep into the spiral and you ask such deep questions. I think for me, it's like, I know relationships are super important. And I think there's different seasons for different things. And doing it in the way that works for you is so important. And sometimes that's like, hey, I can go to a mastermind and really like leverage those relationships. Sometimes that's a local coffee meetup. It depends what season you're in. But I actually went through a season before I was pregnant where it was 2024 and I probably went to an event every week and I was in 2 high-level masterminds. I'm going to guess we spent probably $125,000 if I was to guess. Stacey Millard, don't come after me. She's like, it's higher. We spent a ton of money and I actually didn't even have time to like talk to the people in the masterminds. Like I didn't have time to, people would actually ask me for quotes and I couldn't follow up with them fast enough. Like, not ideal, right? So I think it's really figuring out your season of life. Sorry, so long.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you shared that. And I think it's permission giving for a lot of people. And I think the reality is that relationships are complicated.
Yeah.
Especially in a time, and we've talked about this, being a service-based business owner in a time when, you know, a lot of people are going through a lot of challenging times.
Yeah.
And sometimes you end up being the sounding board, or they're taking out their experience on you, even though you have actually nothing to do with what's going on. And they're projecting their own insecurities, especially when they don't know you, when they're giving this feedback. But then there's also the other element of knowing, like, as women, as we shift and change, our evolution makes others uncomfortable when they got so comfortable with a certain version of us that was maybe convenient for them at that time too. And I think this opens up just another part of the whole kind of the courage to be disliked. I'm actually reading that book as our next book club pick. So I haven't read it yet. I'm very excited to dive in.
Yeah.
So I'm curious kind of your perspective on that. And I don't know, as a Gemini, do you feel like people-pleasing tendencies?
Oh, yeah, big time. Is that Gemini related?
I don't know. I'm a Gemini rising, but I'm I'm still a newbie with all the astrology.
Yeah, I'll have to get Maria because Maria the other day was like talking about something. She's like, he's Aries moon.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Like, you need to give more information than what you've just shared. Yeah, I definitely have people-pleasing tendencies, like big time. And actually, I think that's probably, in a way, if I'm being honest, what's attracted me to bad clients at the beginning, right? Was like people who really love people who are not people pleasers love people pleasers, and they find them. And so I was found. But I would say, from a relationship standpoint, what's actually even harder, like, and I'm trying to find the right way to phrase this, but like, we run a community, right? We run these 200-person events a year, online community.
Which are absolutely amazing. And if you haven't been, you have to go and experience, because they're my favorite events, and I look forward to them so much every time.
Oh my gosh, Carly was so funny at the last one. She was like, I forgot my corporate credit card. Don't let the VIP tickets sell out. I was like, Carly, you're in. Don't worry. We got you a ticket. We love the Carly. But like, that's actually been the hardest part, I think, where people they change your version of you changes, right? Like, for you, right? Like, I have seen people's evolution over these years, and I have a few like high level friends who, have had many exits and things like that, and they're the most guarded with their time, and we all seem to be okay with that, right? Because they've reached a level of success where that's appropriate, and then what level is that appropriate for us, right? Where it's like, especially with my community, I love the High Vibe women. Like, literally, the joy of my life, I will say, other than my family, is like women from High Vibe women meeting and doing business together. Like, if I see two women who have ever been at an event together, I will DM you directly and I will ask if you met at High Vibe women for my ego. Like, I just need to know that you guys are connecting, you guys are making money and doing business together. And because I know that the power of that. That's why we created it. And I just struggle so much because as we've evolved so much, it's like, High Vibe women's like not about me and Maria. But I think because of the level of leadership we show in it, there is like an inherent thing where people DM us questions. I'm like, you would never do that to someone else. Or the asks are greater. And it's just interesting to me. I think it's like, I'm always in self-protection. But I had a friend actually who ran an events company that she sold. And she was like, you see who your real friends are when you don't have a stage to put them on anymore.
Wow.
And that's always sat with me because it's like a question I always ask. Like, when I have people who like kind of enter my orbit, I'm always like, I'm interested. Like, why? And it's like that self-protection a bit. But I think, the courage to be disliked piece, that's something I'm always working on. I have a lot of trouble being disliked. As you can tell, someone called me cold and I spiraled out of control about it. But I'm always working on that because I actually think that nobody can do anything big without having a few haters. And this whole, like, you don't see your haters at the bank kind of thing. Like, there has never been someone who's hated on me who I've been like, wow, they're so accomplished. Like, and I was aspiring to be like them, and that sucks that they hate me. Like, it's always been like, I'm like, oh, I can see where this is coming from. But it's tough, especially as women. Like, it's tough to do such relationship-based work.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And I'm curious right now, I'm kind of having that question around like the not enoughness that's coming up. And I'm curious if that for me, that's always been just like a block that I find come up every time I'm growing into my next version. And maybe there's a different version of that for you, or maybe it is not enoughness. And I'd love to get back a little bit to the motherhood piece too. And just, how is that block or maybe another block shown up in, being able to show up in both those roles the way that you really want to, and how have you kind of navigated that?
Yeah, it's a tough one for sure. I think, how I've navigated that and how I've like tried to fight that a bit, because obviously everyone feels it, right? Like, you're growing a business, you're doing something, you're like, well, for the first dinner we ran for High Vibe Women, will anybody come to it? Every time we put tickets on sale, right? We have 188 women come, they buy tickets before the event. We post the webpage and I'm always like, hope someone comes to this. I know they will, right? It's just natural for us to be worried. I would say the way I combat that, like in business life, is really focusing on being around expanders. So people like you, people in my life who I'm like, wow, I love what they're doing. Like, I love what you do with your family. I think like your kids, I've told you this before, your kids are going to look back on their like life with you and they're going to be like, oh my God, like I'm crying. I don't know. I'm crying for you. But your kids are going to look back and they're going to be like, wow, she loved being my mom. Like, look how present she was. She was there all the time. And that's like what I aspire for my kids, right? So that's where all my choices come from. It's like, goodness, every time I talk about motherhood on a podcast, I need to be kicked off these motherhood podcasts. Don't put me on a motherhood tour, guys. Don't let me on these podcasts anymore. But yeah, like I think for me, it's like I want, from a business perspective, I like the not enoughness. Like what I do is I surround myself by expanders, like people who are doing things that I couldn't even imagine. Family life, business life, whatever that looks like. So from a business perspective, Dad, I'm just crying. Someone's got to edit this. From a business perspective, it's like, for me, it's like seeing people who've had multiple exits. It's seeing people doing this while having a family. It's seeing people on stage, but it's also being at dinners with them. It's like, I don't look to events to be like, oh, like I like need to become best friends with people on stage. I'm like, oh, I'm like so excited to learn from the people I'm in the seats with. So I try to surround myself with people who are doing bigger things than me. And sometimes I get to be the person who makes those deposits in other people, right? Where they're like, oh, I'm growing an agency and it's not at 7 figures yet. And I really want to learn about your systems. Like, love to make those deposits. And then there's seasons where I make withdrawals from other people, and like I get to borrow belief from them. In the family life piece, I think the not enoughness I battle is a bit different because I think, and I'll share this really vulnerably, but I went back to work pretty fast, and I have so much help, like Carly, like I've like my all grandparents fighting over this child 24/7. I could not see him, and he would be well loved and taken care of. But I went to a wedding in Halifax like 10 weeks after I gave birth, which seems insane, but it wasn't actually that bad. It was fine, and went and. I ended up having to stay an extra day, so I was gone for like 4 days, and I cried the way home. Like I was feeling so overwhelmed. And I laugh now because I'm on ChatGPT like the whole time, being like, my baby is 10 weeks old and I'm traveling for more than 4 days. Will he lose his attachment to me? Like, I think about these things, and I think I'm still in it in a lot of ways more than I show, which is this, like, when I'm away, I still, like, I look at, you know this, you've been away with me. I'm like, look at photos of my baby. And you're like, okay, I see your baby.
No, I love it. I love it. I never get sick of it.
But it's like, I think I'm still trying to figure out what that looks like, because for me, like, really fulsome success, I see these amazing women, especially in the U.S. Like, I'm just going to say, like, as a lot of my American friends, like it's very common for them to be traveling. They get like no mat leave. Like they're like, their baby's strapped on and they're at Create Cultivate speaking. Like that's just like the way it is. So I've been so influenced by that. And I'm also in a totally different season here at home where most of my friends aren't entrepreneurs with who are moms. And so they're like at home with their kids. And I'm like, well, am I not at home enough? Like, will Jack not love me as much? Because, and then I ask, and I find myself asking moms who, like, American moms especially, who leave their kids behind. I'm like, you have a good bond with them? Do your kids like love you? They're like, yeah, my kids love me. But it's like such an insecurity of mine. So I think like the not enoughness, I think, is like really informed at home in such a different way, where like in business, I feel like I feel it way less. And maybe it's just because of seasonality now. I'm sure I felt it a few years ago. But now the home piece is so important to me, because I like, similarly to your kids, like I want Jack to grow up and be like, yeah, my mom's like Batty. Like she's like Batty doing all these things. But also like, she was like always there to pick me up, and like we got to play all the time. And like right now he can't talk, so he's not.
Just wait till he's into the Paw Patrol and you're playing that 24/7.
Yeah. You're like, I could do less Paw Patrol. Yeah. I know the thing you said to me last time. You're like, there's only so many times you can play Spider-Man. I'm like, yeah, fair enough.
Oh my God. You're getting me so emotional with all of that. Because like, meanwhile, as you're saying this, I'm picturing you through Jack's eyes, and just like how much he will see you as this woman who has completely raised the bar and created so much beautiful opportunity impact for others, but for home too, and what you've demonstrated for him and maybe his potential partner one day, and who's going to have, there's going to be high expectations there. But I admire you so much and how you've navigated that without losing those parts of yourself, and of course they're going to evolve and change, but you've stayed true to that. And that's what I think is so cool, and why you can't compare any, especially motherhood journey. Yeah. But I also I see how Jack has so much love all around him, and how your situation has allowed other family members to step in and show their love and support. Totally. And there's something so beautiful about that too. And it kind of just like reminds me of like, the good old days of the village.
Yeah, exactly
right?
What I was going to say. It's about the village, like, and I think I like grew up with a lot of grandma time, and my parents did like the most they could. Like, so it's like I have no criticisms on my parents. And my parents were super young when they had me. They were like 20. So it's like they're like, we're like in different seasons. My mom's like, you're so old. Like, oh God. But like it's yeah, literally I was like 14 when my mom, like at this point, you know what I mean? So just like totally different things. But it's just for me, I totally agree that there is like a village aspect to it. And I wanted to be loved by so many people. And I think growing up as an only child, I didn't always feel that where I had like a big village of people. I don't have a ton of extended family. So it was like it's been really interesting. And I just think like as working moms, we're just like in so many ways my whole life, I've always felt like I didn't experience like gender what's the word I'm looking for? Like inequality. Like because my parents, I was the only child, I'm a female, like my parents were like, you could literally do anything you want to do. Don't think you're smart enough to be a doctor, but if you feel like that's it, then go do that. And I always was like, oh, if I want to be a teacher, I'll be a teacher. Like if I want to do this, I'll do that. Like, yay, like, you know, go girls. And like I never was like, oh, like men have it different. I went to UW, lots of men, never felt like that, like ever. And it wasn't until motherhood where I was like, oh, there's a difference here. And even with me and my husband, like, and not in a negative way. Like my husband's basically a stay-at-home dad. Like he works a little bit for us, and I think that works great. But what's really like interesting is like seeing what the expectations are, the mental load. Like, you know, I wake up, the first thing I think about is where's my child? What are they up to? Like, has he woken up? Like, it's like, you know, what's he up to? Like, you know, that's the feeling. And Josh is like, oh, like I was watching a few reels and then I remembered I had a baby. I'm like, yeah, like not me. I don't have a physical aspect, maybe. I don't know. But I just think as women and especially as entrepreneurs, like we have this opportunity to rewrite what working looks like for our families. And I think, you know, our kids are going to look, you know, so differently and at this opportunity we have with them. But it's just, yeah, it's just so interesting. I just think like we have just this huge opportunity to rewrite what it looks like to be a woman and working and running a business. And we get to do it on our terms. And it doesn't have to be so prescriptive. And I've heard so much negative rhetoric around being a mom, a working mom. And is it so hard? Is it the hardest thing I've literally ever managed? Yes. Like literally the hardest thing I've ever done is trying to figure all this out. And I have so much help. And like, I'm always like, hi, he has a new tooth, I think. Like, you know, I'm always trying to figure all that out. But it's also like the most rewarding, and I know it's just getting started. So I think like, again, just to land the plane a bit, I do think that a way through that is by surrounding yourself by other moms. And like, that's why people do the mom group thing. I don't, because I have too many friends at max capacity. But like, you know, like I have lots of expansive entrepreneur mom friends. Totally. And so I just think like, yeah,
which
just
finding
like those people.
That is your version of mom group.
Yeah, every time someone asks me to join a mom group, I'm like, my chiropractor, I love her to death, but she's like, come to this like thing where we wear our babies outside and there's music, and I'm like, couldn't be me, could not be me. Outside, no, not me. But yeah, no, to each their own. But I think like finding that community is really what it's about, and whether that's like, you know, in motherhood or not, finding that community for people to expand you, especially also in business, right? Like you don't want to be around, like if you are what is it, like a compilation of the people you're most around. And if you're around people who are like low vibe, negative about business, like every struggle is a huge issue, like you want people who are going to pour belief into you. And that's important.
Yeah. And I think the reality is that kind of maybe the more standard mom group, that's maybe the mom that is on a year or 18-month maternity leave, is not going to actually have the same conversations that you really actually need from the mom group, right?
Yeah.
So it's being really mindful of, surrounding yourself with other women who get it, who are in the arena and understand kind of the same journey that you're on and the challenges that come with that.
And that's the same thing with business.
Yes.
Like, you know, you can throw a rock, you will find a business coach. Like there are so many business coaches. And a lot of my favorite mentorship relationships haven't been with traditional coaches. It's been with people who I've built a relationship with where I'm like, interesting. Like, you know, you have like this, you know, I sat down at dinner one time. This guy was asking me these questions about podcasting. We had this great chat. And then he suddenly randomly says he sold a $21 million agency.
Just threw that in there.
Like, it was like, oh, yeah, like, it wasn't a podcasting agency. Wow. He just had questions. And then I poured into him on podcasting. He's like, anything I could ever do for your agency, like, do let me know, right? And, like, you just never know, and that's who you want to be around. You want to be around, like, people you can borrow belief from. And I think it's really easy when you're in a season of business that feels lesser, or you're feeling scarcity, or you're feeling worry, for you to, like, seek mentorship in the wrong places. And I've seen this over and over again where I'm a huge, like, you know, this is like definitely a Pinterest quote, but like not to take advice from people who you would trade lives with, but like I'm a huge believer that in business, like if I'm not going to seek mentorship from Alex Hormozi, I'm not. Like he's like, I don't actually care about the parenthood thing. That's not a big deal breaker for me, but like I don't want to or aspire to work like he does. Doesn't mean that he's not got something great. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
So I think for folks listening, like I think if you're looking for mentorship, whether that be community or whatever, it's like who's doing it the way you want to be doing it. Even the vibe of doing it. Like with high vibe, like the thing I get the most from people is like they're like, wow, like you and Maria have Miranda. Dad's just gonna kill me. Someone sent me a DM that said, you and Marissa have a really good thing going, and we were like dead. But me and Maria, like we just come at it so honestly, like, and I think like that has really resonated with people. And so I just think find the people who do that for you.
Yeah, no, I love it. You talked about the rewriting piece, and I'm just curious, kind of to bring this full circle, because we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but just how you are rewriting your definition of success in this season of your life, and what does that look like and feel like for you?
Yeah, definitely a rewrite for sure. I think in terms of how it looks, I talked a little bit about this, like more family time, like a little bit of a slower pace, the things that would bring me joy, like the like, oh, I'm going to go here and then I'm going to go here and then boop, boop. But like, that stuff just.
Lots of booping.
A lot of boop. I booped for 2024 was the year of the boop. Like, honestly, it was just too much. And so I just don't aspire for that kind of life right now. And I like want something a little bit slower. But I think I'm letting success like really be shaped by like, everyday moments. And I think that that's the difference is that we still have really big social snippet goals and high vibe women goals. Like both are on a bigger rocket ship than I was even expecting. But I think mostly I'm letting it be shaped by like, okay, after this, I'm going to go home and like, you're interviewing my business partner, Maria, after this. And Maria and I were trying to decide who goes first. And I was like, well, I want to go home because I want to go see Jack. Like, I'm like really being intentional with these things. And so I think just letting success be like a daily kind of measure. And some days feel way more successful than others. Other days it feels like hummus express, but I'm just taking it kind of day by day. Because honestly, it's like I couldn't even imagine myself 5 years ago in this position. So like 5 years from now, I'm going to look back and be like, holy crap, right? So just being open to it.
Yes. Oh, so good. Perfect way to end. I did want to actually wrap with just a little bit of rapid fire.
Can't wait.
So on that note, what's a belief about success that you've outgrown?
That you have to hustle for it.
Yes. So good. What is a non-negotiable in this current season for you of business and life?
A red light mask lay down.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, just like a moment of peace.
Yes. Oh my God. What's something you're simplifying?
Expectations of others. I think I'm doing a better job. This is a rapid fire. I'm going to talk for 5 minutes, but I'm doing a
That's
better.
my kind of rapid fire.
Yeah. We like words. I think I was the first person to answer email. I'm the first person to do and now I let things sit more. And I think it's like helped me strengthen people's expectations of me that it's like, you're not going to get an instant response. And like, that's okay. Rather than like stressing over how many emails I have, I'm just simplifying into like, not everybody responds instantly. Now I've just become one of those people.
Yes. Oh, that's so good. I feel like especially as a Manny Gen, recognizing that just because someone doesn't work at the same speed as we do, it's not a knock against their approach. And sometimes I really intentionally have to pause so that I can actually give space to my team to step in before I swoop in with a solution when they have actually something better or give them the opportunity.
Totally.
It's a lot harder than it sounds.
It's actually so hard. Like I think we should do a podcast about this on my podcast because it's honestly so hard to do that.
Yes. What's something that you're calling in right now?
Ooh. I think like aligned partnership opportunities. I'm like leaning more into like partnerships, especially on the high vibe women's side. So I think, just aligned partnership opportunities.
Yes. So good. Okay, amazing. And I think my final question for you is, and this isn't necessarily rapid fire, but just if your younger self could see you right now, what would she say?
Oh goodness. That's a good question. What would she say? I always say it's like a bit of like a mix. Like it's like, because Maria and I have talked about this before, but it's like on one end, like, wow, like this is so amazing. Like I think especially the family life piece, because I think as women, especially entrepreneurial women, we like feel like we have to wait for something to be perfect before making the next step. So it's like I was like, my business needs to be here before we have kids. Jack was a surprise. And so like excited, like so happy about. And now I'm kind of like, when's my next one? Like I'm like so excited. And like, but I think I because of the way it happened, I didn't get to where I thought I needed to make it happen, and it's happening. So I think there's like a wow to it. And then the other piece is like a bit of an of course. You know, where it's like, of course this is all going to work out. Like, it's easy. Like, it gets to be easy. Doesn't mean that when it's easy, it's not stressful sometimes or hard sometimes or whatever, but it gets to be easy for us, which is the best.
Beautiful. All right. So where can people find you other than, of course, joining the High Vibe Women community online? If you're not in there, you need to be. It is my favorite online community, especially, and in person. Just like feels like home. It's so welcoming. I love showing up for the calls every week. There's always something different, always someone different to meet. I just think the way that you guys cultivate community there and nurture so much growth for members from, all points of the spectrum in terms of where they're at in their entrepreneurship journey is just everything. So other than that,
you're the best.
How do we find you?
Yeah, so the best place would be Instagram or LinkedIn. I'm at Kristina.Bartold, spell my name with a K. And then, the High Vibe Women online community in person or at the Social Snippet for all things podcast and social. But we have some great partnerships coming up. Me and Carly are working on some things. So lots to come from both of us. But thank you, firstly. Thank you so much for having me. I love you. You know this. And I think the world of you. So I'm just so happy that you're using this as a medium to get out to people, because I just think that the world needs more Carly. So this is a great way to get it out.
Well, thank you for being one of my believers and just cheering for me. And I feel you're just one of those friends that sometimes I'm like, I feel like I've known you for a lifetime. Like, just, I don't know. It makes me realize that Kristina does everything fast, because I feel like just how our relationship has also evolved has felt so fast. And I appreciate you so much. And you're just that person that I can always text and lean on. And that's so important. So I hope other people find that person in their business and in their life. And thank you for being here. And it feels very full circle for you to be one of my first podcast guests. So thank you.
Love ya.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Favorite Self podcast. If this episode stirred something in you, there's a reason for it. If you could take a moment to share with a friend, someone who's also building something brave, that would mean so much to me. Better yet, leave a review. It helps this message reach even more women who are ready to lead differently. And before you go, remember this: your favorite self is already within you, waiting to be heard. See you next time.